Hey everybody, welcome back to another lecture. So today we're going to finish up by looking at some case studies of de-radicalization. And to do that, I thought the best way to get an understanding of how the process works is looking at real people who have come back from the extremes. And so for this lecture, I'm going to play two different YouTube videos. In the first one, I'm going to play you an interview by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, that the broadcaster interviewed two former right-wing extremists, one based in the United States, the other based in Canada. And this is right after the El Paso shootings, and really trying to get an understanding of what happened in the El Paso shootings, how do people engage in that, how do people de-radicalize. And then the second interview is an interview with a former far-right extremist in the UK, former white supremacist who came back from the extreme and is now working. In these cases, all three of these individuals are now working in various capacities to try to help de-radicalize individuals. And so after you watch these two videos, I'm going to give you your third discussion question and be interested to see what you have to post on the discussion board. So let's just jump right in and start with our first interview between the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's news anchor and the former far-right extremists based in the United States and Canada. So let's take a look.
Can we look at how people get to such a violent place and diffuse the threat before it takes shape? Tonight, we're going to go in depth on that very question with two guests who, at one time, were nearly consumed by hate. Canadian Tony McAleer was a white supremacist. He used to recruit for the White Aryan Resistance, but he went through a personal transformation and co-founded Life After Hate, which now helps people leave extremist and white supremacist groups. Aaron Stark was almost a school shooter. After the Parkland shooting, he admitted publicly that as a teen he had tried and failed to get a gun because he felt so powerless. Now he gives talks and tries to help others in similar situations. Aaron is in Denver tonight, and Tony is in Vancouver. Good to see you both. Thanks for joining us. Aaron, I'm going to start with you. We don't know a whole lot at this stage about what happened in Ohio, but we certainly know more about what happened in El Paso, particularly because of this racist manifesto that was posted by the alleged shooter. What did you make of that?
I saw immediately that he was searching for validation. He seemed to be writing about how he wanted to be some kind of hero against the invading horde, and it seemed to all be directed towards getting his in-group to cheer him on. And it seemed to be that he wanted positive validation, but from the most negative source possible.
And Tony, as someone who used to be a white supremacist and recruit them, what did you think of the message that was left?
I think, what this ideology and what these movements attract is people with those vulnerabilities that are lacking a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, a sense of significance. And when you join these movements, they will give you all of it in spades and like the other guest said, in the most negative way possible.
So they make you feel like you belong? Is that what you're trying to say, Tony?
Yeah, they make you feel like you belong and you're part of this great heroic struggle to save the white race. And it adds a narrative of meaning to a life that maybe doesn't have such a narrative, that doesn't have a solid sense of purpose.
So, Aaron, you gave this talk where you admitted that you had actually considered a school shooting. This wasn't a school shooting, but they were two shootings in a number of days. So what do you think when you see that unfolding?
I think that there is a simmering kind of hatred in this country, and I think that it's being pushed on by those up at the top. It doesn't help with Trump with tweeting out that people need to go back where they come from. That does not help at all.
Well, so Tony, I was going to put that to you as well. That the rhetoric that we're hearing from the president, does it in some way normalize behavior? Does it embolden people?
Well, I think our society is very much at war with itself. And I think it's a simplistic way to look at it. I think the issue is more of a culture of violence that exists in the United States. That, and I think the social media and the glorification of these acts. Mm-hmm. I think that Christchurch was the first time where someone really used the internet to live stream the video and to really try and make himself I hate to use this word in this context, but a superstar in that space. And, I think we have to do what the Prime Minister of New Zealand said and not give him that space, not mention his name.
I hear what you're saying about the culture, the American culture, and I'll get you to weigh in on that too, Aaron. But is there not something particular happening here around white supremacy? Do you not think that it is particular to that subculture as well?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And some of those guys that, for example, the person who shot up Tree of Life Synagogue almost a little less than a year ago in Pittsburgh, he in his manifesto despised Trump. So there is this culture of fear and hatred that permeates this society, and our society's become increasingly polarized. And I think with each and every attack, it gets normalized.
So, Aaron, you're down there. You're an American living in that, and you're now at the point in your life where you're trying to reach some of these people who are feeling marginalized or being lured into violence or white supremacy or whatever. What are those people telling you? How do they approach you, and what are they talking to you about?
Well, I think that there is definitely a fetishistic nature with violence here in America, where we tend to wrap around all our heroes with violence, and it seems to just permeate every level of our culture. And I think that when people are coming to me, it seems the thing that strikes me the most is how universal that sense of pain is. I think at the base of it, the real problem is when you hate yourself, you'll do everything you can to make the world agree with you. And I think that these kids hate themselves.
Yeah, but Aaron, why is it particularly white men that are doing that and that are affected in that way?
I think that as we're raised, we're taught that we need to be a certain way. We need to man up. We need to not show emotion. We need to act like a man. And I think that those kinds of teachings are extremely damaging to our youth. I think that I think that white males, especially in America, have a huge access to high-capacity weapons. Mm-hmm. They have a seemingly a growing hatred of education and a vilification of people who are smart. And that combination, it just turns into this swirling morass of hatred. It's the fear of the other. It's xenophobia. Right. It's the fear of the different.
So Tony, when you're out there trying to help people too, and either they reach out to you or their family reaches out to you, or there's signs that they are turning this way, what are you doing to try and turn them before these things happen?
What we do is at Life After Hate, we try and find them resources in their local community to help them with these issues, because they're struggling with it as a family, and then the individuals are struggling as well. We try and deal with the pain, the underlying cause of the pain and the anger, which is leading to the lashing out.
Aaron, and you wanted to weigh in on that too.
Oh, just that for my own personal aspect of it is I tend to deal with more of the depression side. The people who come to me, I talk to them more about feeling worthless and how they don't feel listened to. And so I try to focus most on making them feel like they belong. Because when you don't feel human, being treated like a person can change your entire world. And sometimes that's the base problem of it. They just don't feel like they're human.
Because you've both been through different things, but both sort of trying to get out of something. Let me just end on this. I'll start with you, Tony. What was the moment or the thing that clicked for you when you sort of were able to get yourself back away from all that hate and darkness?
Yeah, to touch on what Aaron's point was, it was compassion, and the compassion showed up in the form of my two children that were born 15 months apart. And when I couldn't see, I saw a person who wasn't whole when I looked in the mirror. Kids, they see a whole person. They see a magnificent person when we can't see it on our own. And that's what compassion does. When we're compassionate with someone, we hold a mirror up to them and allow them to see their humanity reflected back at them. And once that process starts and is further supported, it can make that change. Because I believe that the level to which we dehumanize other human beings is a mirror reflection of how internally disconnected and dehumanized we are.
Aaron, last word to you on that.
For me, it was being treated like a human. It was simple acts of kindness. It was listening to me when I felt like no one was listening to me in the world, and realizing that I wasn't broken and I was just going through a really terrible life.
I would imagine sometimes, though, people are too far gone. Are they not, Aaron?
I'd say that, yeah, there are the people, if you follow through on the act and you actually go through with it, you're too far gone and you deserve the punishment that you're getting. And there's a small selection of people who are going to do that. But there's a much larger section of people who are in that gray area that might do it or that feel like they could at any time. And those are the people that we can reach. Those are the people that we can show that life really does matter and that they matter and that their opinion is worthy and that people will miss them. And show kindness. Kindness is free. People say all the time that, well, if it's not going to fix all these problems, then why should we do it? And this law isn't going to change everything, and we can't pass that regulation. We can start by just being nice to one person at a time. Just be nice. Give love to the people who you feel deserve it the least because they need it the most.
Okay, I got to leave it there. Aaron and Tony, thank you both for your perspectives tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Can we look at...
Okay, so that was the first interview. The next one I want to show you again, as I said, is the interview with the former individual who belonged to a group called Combat 18, a far-right extremist group in the UK, white supremacist ideology. And this individual left that group and again also now is trying to help others leave extremist organizations, come back to society, and really trying to figure out, and through the interview he discussed a lot of the ways of how he got involved and how these individuals can try to be helped to bring them back from the edge. So start this interview now.
So joining us now is Nigel Bramage, a reformed former leader of British far-right group Combat 18. Good to have you here in the studio to talk to, because I think what we all think in moments, and unfortunately have been so many, when we see the damage extremists can do, is we think, God, what were they thinking? What was in their mind? And of course, you know. So, first of all, how did you find yourself in that group in the first place? Because you were pretty central to it, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, first I wasn't a leader of Combat 18, but I was a member and a regional organiser. But for myself, I got drawn in because of my hatred of terrorism. So in the 1980s, the IRA were bombing lots of civilians and cities, and for me that was the draw in. Somebody gave
you
me...
felt you were standing up to that and found yourself in a group that was very violent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the idea was that actually you were standing up against terrorism, you were supposed to be doing something to defend your country, but actually all you were getting involved in was a grooming process, and these individuals groom you in for one single thing, and it might not be about hate, it might want you to do something the right thing, and then all of a sudden you just get engrossed in this world.
Where did this grooming take place? Because what we're hearing about this guy, Tobias R, as we're calling him in Germany, is that, and we hear a lot of these cases now, that there's an online network that actually exists on a dark web. Now, to most of us, we wouldn't even know how to get onto the dark web. But I mean, was that prevalent when you were part of Combat 18, or was it more sort of meeting people face to face and being groomed in that way?
In my day, it was very much about face-to-face, meeting people on a one-to-one basis. But through our work with Exit UK, you basically help individuals get out of the far right. What we've been told now is 70% of the people that we engage with have been recruited online.
And how does that work?
A lot of time it's just people who sort of, they're angry about something, they're looking for some information. The next minute they're scrolling through the internet, and what happens is then there's a call to action, and that call to action then will get somebody to get involved in the group, ask questions, and that's just the very, very start of the process.
Just the idea of getting onto the dark web, it's a very simple thing, but it really gets me. How do they even get onto the dark? How do they
What's
know?
that call to action?
How do they know? Oh, okay. If I want to get involved in this, I've got to get onto the dark web, and this is how I get onto it. Somebody physically's got to be able to tell them that.
The thing
That
is, right,
call to action you're talking about,
yeah.
that takes you through. Explain that a little bit.
But the thing is, right, it's not just on the dark web. Most people actually get involved just simply by going onto Google or a different sort of, search engine, and all of a sudden they're getting involved with the organisations. And the call to action can be anything from, getting out there, leafleting, recruiting your friends, all the way through to getting involved in direct action and physical violence.
So they respond to an urge, these individuals, of something they're feeling, something's going on in their life, and that leads them into organisation, which then takes them without realizing sometimes, into a dark web and a place they're then lost in.
Very much so. It is just, you've got to understand it's a really slow process. People will get involved in this, and then all of a sudden, from group to group, people will just say, oh, this isn't the group for you, why don't you try another group? And predominantly each group gets more violent and more extreme.
So, sorry.
No,
you go.
When we talk about far-right extremism, then, I mean, because in Germany, for example, there's been attacks against, well, yesterday Muslims, but there's been attacks previously against Jewish people. There's been even attacks against some Christians who are seen as being too liberal.
Yeah.
But what's the commonality then? Is it white supremacy? We hear this thing. Is that what it is? The common sort of characteristic to all these far-right groups, do you think?
I mean, with the far right, it's actually split up into three sections. You've got people who are worried about immigration and grooming, who are like cultural nationalists. You've got other people who worry about sort of immigration and change in Western society. And then you've got others who actually believe in white supremacy. And just because of the colour of somebody's skin, which is obviously ridiculous, you know, they feel that they're superior to others.
It's disturbing, isn't it? And you had a moment when you felt this was wrong. Tell us about that moment for you.
I mean, for me, it was over a 3-year period. And, you know, initially the first sort of chink in my armour was my wife at the time gave me an ultimatum. It was combat 18 or her. And at the time, I believed I was a soldier fighting a war. So I just chose combat 18 and walked away. But then there was also other things. So there was things about, you know, I was witnessing a lot of violence. I was involved in things which obviously I'm not proud of. But all of a sudden you get to a realisation is actually what I'm doing right. And when, you know, you look at individuals. So for me, it was the pinnacle moment was when there was a black gentleman being attacked in Birmingham City Centre. And it was by 15 combat 18 members. And for me, when I came out of the meeting, I just walked into this absolute mayhem, and I had to decide then, do I do the right thing and try and stop this or walk away? And for me, I decided to step in and say, to get to this gentleman, you've got to get through me. But the only reason I think that I was actually saved was because I was in a leadership role. I think then they were very reluctant to attack me.
Otherwise, you would have put yourself at direct risk, I'm sure. So the big question now is, how do we stop people getting drawn in? How do we get people out? And I know you've devoted your life to trying to do that now. So what is your view? How does that work?
I mean, very much so. So, you know, myself now, I've got an organisation called Exit UK, and we work with Exit Germany, Exit USA, and it's very much about formers being there. We offer a non-judgmental approach. And what we're trying to talk about actually is what are the issues individuals have got involved in. Because if we don't know the issues, then we can't de-radicalise these individuals. But it's not just about that, it's about them as an individual. You know, we always explain, you've been involved in the far right, but actually, have you stopped one girl getting groomed? Have you stopped one immigrant getting into the country? And these people obviously all say no. But then we'll say, actually, then, you know, you haven't achieved what you want to achieve. So why are you in these organisations?
In the first place, you start to challenge it. When you look at somewhere like Germany, it has actually very robust laws, very strict, some of the strictest gun control laws in the world. It makes you wonder what can be done on a government and on a wider level to prevent this. Do you know the answer?
It's very much about partnership working. Nobody involved in this sort of arena has the complete answer. So for us, we get people in through the door, we have that trust, but then we'll pass them on to people who might need help with housing, education. It's about sort of finding out the individual issues and then getting the families involved as well. Lots of people think, well, you know, parents of people who are involved in these organisations, are they bad? And they aren't.
Yeah, of course.
Because of people who've been involved and got recruited by the internet, we need to educate and train mums and dads how they engage with the loved ones.
And just generally, Nigel, do you agree with the idea that, you know, people are now saying that far-right extremism is on the up and is probably one of the largest threats to Europe and the UK at the moment? Are you seeing that as well?
For myself, I would say, you know, the far right has increased. I mean, 5 years ago, I was working for a local council, really happy in my job, but because I saw the increase in far right extremism, I decided to do something about it. And for me, the more people I talk to, I do see far right increasing. However, we've got to realise it's just a minority, and that's the really important thing to remember.
Of course it is.
Okay, so you know some of those videos can be difficult to watch, and So we talked about the difficulties in trying to wrestle with the idea of how we respond to people who have engaged in extremism, have engaged in extremist acts, and then how do we go about thinking about whether these people, are quote unquote redeemable, how they're reincorporated back into society. But one thing I wanted to ask for your third discussion question, based on these two interviews. So, looking at these two interviews, or these two interviews with these three people, we saw that these individuals discuss very personal stories when they were laying out how they actually managed to leave the far right and move away from extremism. So the third discussion question 3, is to what extent do you think de-radicalization can occur on a large scale? Again, discussion question 3. To what extent do you think de-radicalization can occur on a large scale? All right, we'll leave that there for now. Talk to you again soon.